I want to change focus a little bit now from the technology to the work being done, in this case by Toitū Te Whenua Land Information New Zealand, specifically in bringing the perspective of key GIS data to the questions of resilience and climate change for New Zealand. As the Head of Location Information at LINZ, Aaron Jordan has accountability across a wide range of operational functions in geospatial disciplines, including mapping, charting, positioning and property information. Aaron is also LINZ's Chief Digital Officer, where he supports LINZ to navigate the future from influencing mindsets and the way of working to how LINZ experiments and invests in capabilities, technology and data. Please join me in welcoming Aaron to talk to us today about his team's work in the vital area of resilience. Aaron.
Thanks, mate. Thanks, Scott. Tēnā koutou katoa. Ko kaupuka tau mahaka te maunga. Ko awhirau te awa. No Otepoti aho, ko Ngāti Pakeha aho. Ki te whanganui a Tara Tuku Kaianga, ko Aaron Jordan toko ingoa. Ko Chief Digital Officer Raroa, ko Head of Location Information aho. Ke Toitū Te Whenua toko mahi, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa. Kia ora everyone. It's great to be here in chilly Christchurch. I grew up about 4 hours down the road in a small place called Dunedin. So it was a bit of a comfort actually opening the curtains to snow this morning. Growing up as a kid, coming up to Christchurch was always a highlight, coming up to the big smoke. There were malls, fun parks, more than one pool, and of course there was McDonald's, which was a key highlight. It was always such a buzz to come here and visit. In the summer before last, I was able to bring my family down from Wellington to Christchurch for a week's holiday. And I can now say that Christchurch is the #1 destination wanted by my kids for holidays. So much so, when they found out I was coming down here without them, my daughter said she was going to get into my luggage and come down with me. My son quickly pointed out, "You can't do that, you're too heavy." He's got a little bit to learn. Anyway, it's great to see Christchurch and this fantastic new convention centre to Pai. And kudos to Eagle Tech for bringing us to Christchurch for this conference. I was reflecting with some others earlier, it's a bit like a reunion, bringing all the familiar faces and new faces together in such a huge crowd, which is fantastic to see. If you're curious as to why I'm standing here a bit lame, you'll have to come and talk to me and ask me about the tree, and I'll enlighten you. Anyway, I was asked to talk a little bit about LINZ's program that we started to look at 12 key data sets. And we're doing this to support emergency response. Now there's a long answer to that why we do this. However, at the time this request came through, we're in the middle of the Tasman Nelson floods. So the why was actually pretty evident as to why we need to do this. So Earth or nature is indiscriminate. Whilst we humans are pretty good at harnessing its power and systems for our benefit, food production and power generation, we are yet to find ways to stop its extreme forces, such as earthquakes, hurricanes, floods, fires, or even pandemics, and from stopping them from turning up from time to time and impacting our lives. And because we can't stop them, we can only anticipate them and their potential impacts. And that's where the 4 R's come in: reduction, readiness, response, and recovery. At the heart of that are people trying to make decisions, such as where and how to reduce hazards. Who are our most vulnerable? What capabilities do we need and where do we need them in an event of? When and where do we need to order evacuations? What needs to be rebuilt first? And so on. I am digital officer at LINZ, but I still rock paper every now and again. So top of their minds is ensuring the well-being of people in the path of an event and minimising the impact to assets and property. And key to doing that is having the data to inform decisions. And LINZ has a role to play in ensuring that data is available to those decision makers when they need it. However, we haven't necessarily always been the best at fulfilling that role. This hit home to me on the morning of November 14, 2016, after much of the country was rudely awakened by a magnitude 7.8 earthquake just after midnight. When I think about the Kaikoura earthquake, my mind is always drawn to memories of my son, who was about 4 years old at the time. First off, it was about his desperate efforts to climb out from underneath me after I'd rushed into his room, snatched him up from his bed, dumped him on the floor. All the while, the house was trying to shake itself apart. And during that moment, he just kept saying, "Can I go back to bed yet?" while trying to climb out back into his bed. The second memory was being down at the local mall at about 10 a.m. in the morning. Having already checked in with my staff and confirming that our office was closed, as a family, we decided we needed to get out of the house. Back then, my son had this pretty inconvenient habit of needing to go for extended visits to the bathroom when we were out, and this was no exception on this day. So I was standing there in this cubicle with him, and my phone started to ring. I looked down to see that it was Steve Pyatt from New Zealand Defence Force. And as I answered the phone, I had the sinking feeling set in, as I realised I should have been the one calling him, or at the very least, I should have anticipated this call. Less than 15 minutes later, after that little hurry up from Steve, I found myself back at my desk at home, and with my phone stuck to my ear, as I quickly tried to figure out what LINZ needed to be doing and could start coordinating our efforts. I decided the best way to do that was to call people I knew across agencies and councils, and even Eagle Tech, to find out what was going on and to see what LINZ should be doing. Then everything just became a blur, as I'm sure many of you who have been through this would know, as my world just became lists of actions and updates, constant negotiations, and file transfers. And it went as well as providing daily updates alongside other senior officials at the Beehive on a daily basis, just as the reality of what was happening settled in. But my job became extremely clear. I needed to get the most useful data pre- and post-earthquake into the hands of decision makers. The most useful thing I could do was to make sure people knew where to find the most current pre-earthquake data and to coordinate the acquisition of new imagery, LiDAR and bathymetry. This included coordinating the funding, the procurement, licensing and access to these large data sets. In some instances, it also meant taking over the contracts of other agencies who got off the starting line faster than we did. We needed to keep people up to date with progress as we went, so they knew when data was arriving. And in one instance, we needed to get some special equipment out from Australia with the help of the Australian Navy to make sure we could get understand what happened across the shoreline. It was also heartening to hear that one of our newest data sets, in fact, I think it was only in pilot at the time, building outlines, which you've seen demoed a few times today already, was playing a crucial role in the immediate response as houses were cleared in the impact zone. This was particularly valuable due to the rural nature of this event, and a use case we hadn't considered when we started that pilot. Whilst we had learnt a lot from the Canterbury earthquakes, we were determined to take the lessons from Kaikoura and switch from being reactive to proactive. Fast forward 6 years, and things couldn't be more different. We now run annual emergency exercises to help train and practice. We have duty officers covering a range of responsibilities ready for the next event. And we have clear processes for when we need to activate and go to work helping out those in need. This includes procurement processes, for imagery and LiDAR, and also satellite imagery processing to find the extensive flooding, for example. Now, during an event, I get regular updates, a bit like this one that I got through in the Nelson, Tasman floods. And you can see here the flight path as we captured imagery and LiDAR We received, I think, the first drop of that data last week, and within 3 hours we were able to serve that up to emergency responders, which I think is a fantastic effort. So we've come a long way. But it's not just about being prepared with people and processes, it's also about being prepared with data, and data that is fit for purpose. For the past 8 years or so, LINZ has had a clear strategic priority creating and releasing value from geospatial and property information. And this priority has come in various guises. And we've done a lot of work, particularly around imagery and LiDAR, but also introducing new datasets like the building outlines. However, it wasn't until we identified 3 focus areas, one of which is resilience and climate change, that we could truly focus on the data improvements with a clear purpose. And the best way we decided to find out what datasets needed improving and what about them needs improving was to ask our customers. So we did a survey. And from that survey came these 12 key datasets. So, which you can see here. Now, these are not all LINZ datasets. The program requires us to work closely with Fire and Emergency, Stats NZ, Waka Kotahi, Kiwi Rail and NIWA. And altogether, over the last few years, we've taken the fit for purposeness of these datasets from this date in 2019 through to this date in 2022, which is, I think, a fantastic effort. And a lot of work going on across all those teams. So along with making improvements to the data itself, we've also been working on better accessibility. And one of the key things we did was make available those data sets on the Esri REST services. Now I'd like to do a little bit of audience participation, if you wouldn't mind. Could I ask those who respond in an emergency for their agencies or organisations to stand up for me, please? Awesome, yes, and can we give them a round of applause? So stay standing, not quite finished. Now I'd like to ask anyone else who currently uses these REST services to also stand up. Okay, that's nearly the whole room. All right, and now that those that are left, now that you know these exist, stand up if you will use them. Awesome. All right, thank you. You can all sit down now. That was fantastic. I'm pretty sure that was about 90% of you. The point of doing that demonstration is to point out basically that even though we have a very specific lens by which we're trying to update that data, those improvements benefit everyone. So essentially, if it works for an emergency, it will probably work for most other situations too. One more time, there we go. So as I said before, we still have quite a bit to do, and there's a bunch of new improvements coming, which you can see here, but I want to call out a couple of them. The first one is the second on that list, the new title owners in the ArcGIS REST services. I can now tell you that this is available on the ArcGIS REST services, so you can contact us to request that access. We are giving priority to emergency response people first. But that's been a huge effort and is equivalent to what is also served on the LINZ data service. And the second one is that we have been working very closely, LINZ and Fire and Emergency, to transfer the ownership of the localities dataset into LINZ so that we can maintain it from there. As part of that, we have simplified, or we have a simplified version of the data model, which we are soon to pilot. That'll be also be made available up on the Esri REST services. We're hoping it might even be this week, so keep an eye out for that. So a big congrats to the teams doing hard work in the behind the scenes to bring that to you all. So before I wrap up, I just wanted to share this map with you. I was a bit curious when I was asked to do this presentation, how many emergency declarations have there been in New Zealand? That led us to the NEMA website. which has all the declarations going back to about 2002. It's fascinating to see that particularly in the time since the Kaikoura earthquake, where nearly 50% of all of these declarations appear, and also this year we've seen 7 events already, so we can see a huge escalation in events or declarations. And it serves to me as a reminder and a motivation to keep our efforts up on coordination and data fitness. Finally, I was told to give some calls to action, so I shall do that. The first is, we've got a number of presentations going on in this event, so you get along to those. In particular, I want to call out, get to know Susan Shaw. She is running a workshop on Thursday on these data sets, and she's also running a poll at the moment, which you can see the URL there, the tiny URL. So get onto that and put your votes in. And the last point I just wanted to make was, and I guess it's in common with the mapping to common ground, I call you to think who before how. So think who you should be working with before you try and solve the problem, because the chances are they may have done it already, but at worst you might find someone to go with you, so going together is always better. And with that, I will finish. Nahi miui, cheers.